They were legends of Hollywood's golden age, commanding the screen like giants, but most were shockingly short. From tough guys standing on hidden platforms to romantic leads smaller than their co-stars, these actors relied on clever camera tricks, elevator shoes, and set illusions to appear larger than life. In this video, we reveal 10 stars whose actual height Hollywood desperately hid, and the inventive techniques that made them seem towering. By the end, you'll see how the magic of the movies turned modest men into unforgettable screen legends. 1. Sammy Davis Jr. Talent larger than life. Sammy Davis Jr.'s extraordinary skills as a singer, dancer, actor, and comedian made him one of entertainment's most versatile performers. Standing just 5 feet 3 inches, one of Hollywood's shortest major male stars, Davis commanded attention with boundless energy and charisma that made his stature almost invisible. His height challenges may have fueled his legendary work ethic. As a black performer navigating both racial discrimination and physical limitations, Davis honed technical perfection across multiple disciplines. On stage, his dynamic dancing, animated expressions, and powerful singing drew focus away from physical dimensions, making his presence feel enormous. For film and television, Davis employed traditional height-enhancing methods, elevator shoes adding 2 to 3 inches, pompadour hairstyles for extra visual height, low camera angles, and strategic blocking. Directors often positioned him on raised platforms, and Rat Pack performances with taller stars cleverly used choreography and motion to minimize height differences. Davis also embraced humor about his stature. During one Rat Pack show, when Dean Martin joked about his height, Davis quipped, "I may be looking up at you physically, but musically, you're looking up at me." His confident, good-natured approach reflected a broader philosophy. Being a short, one-eyed black man in show business meant I had to be 10 times better than everyone else just to get half the recognition. So that's what I became, 10 times better. Frank Sinatra captured it best. Sammy may be short in inches, but is a giant in talent. When he performs, you forget about everything except the magic happening on stage. 2. James Cagney. Sometimes energy outweighs inches. James Cagney, the compact powerhouse, commanded the screen in classics from The Public Enemy to White Heat. What audiences didn't realize was that the actor who seemed so imposing stood just 5 feet 5 inches. Cagney approached his stature pragmatically. "I don't care how tall I am or how short I am," he once said. "I care about whether I can act." Warner Brothers used subtle techniques to enhance his presence. Strategic casting placed him with actors of similar or shorter height, blocking kept taller co-stars at a distance or on staircases, and cinematographers employed the Cagney angle, a low camera position that made him appear larger. Director Michael Curtiz mastered these adjustments seamlessly. Cagney's explosive physical performance style also helped distract from his height. His bouncing energy, rapid movements, and emotional intensity created a commanding presence that audiences rarely questioned. Film historian David Thompson noted, "Cagney moved like a coiled spring." His energy made him seem larger than life regardless of his actual height. Warner Brothers even inflated his listed height to 5 feet 9 inches, adding inches to the illusion. James Cagney proved that presence, energy, and skill can tower above any physical limitation. 3. Edward G. Robinson. Sometimes presence outweighs stature. Edward G. Robinson, the giant of Little Caesar, projected an on-screen dominance that left audiences intimidated, yet he stood just 5 feet 5 inches in real life. His height deception went beyond camera tricks, it relied on psychological mastery. Directors like Mervyn Leroy and Fritz Lang used blocking to create dominance. Robinson would sit behind desks while others stood, or invade taller actors' personal space to establish tension. His clipped, forceful, slightly nasal voice added auditory authority, making him seem larger than life. Warner Brothers managed the illusion off-screen too, controlling journalist access and scheduling interviews seated, while inflating his official height to 5 feet 9 inches. Critics noted that his modest stature added depth to his gangster portrayals. A smaller man fighting larger foes conveyed grit, intensity, and cunning. Edward G. Robinson proved that commanding presence isn't measured in inches, it's earned through performance, voice, and sheer cinematic authority. 4. Mickey Rooney. Hollywood's biggest little star. At just 5 feet 2 inches, Mickey Rooney was one of the shortest major male stars in Hollywood history. Yet he became MGM's top box office draw in the late 1930s and early 1940s, headlining the Andy Hardy series of musicals with Judy Garland. Early on, his small stature was an asset, perfect for playing teenagers well into his 20s. As he matured, technical solutions helped maintain his screen presence. Custom shoes with 3-inch lifts, raised platforms, seated co-stars, and low-angle camera shots. Cinematographer Harold Rosson used lighting to elongate his shadow, while costume designers employed vertical patterns to create the illusion of height. Rooney also turned his stature into a comedic advantage in later roles, especially opposite taller actresses. His self-awareness and adaptability allowed him to sustain a career spanning over 80 years. As director Clarence Brown said, Mickey had more talent in his 5 feet 2 inches frame than most actors twice his size. In Hollywood, presence mattered more than inches, and Rooney proved he had it in abundance. 5. Humphrey Bogart. The not-so-tall, dark stranger. Humphrey Bogart, star of Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, exuded a world-weary, commanding presence, yet he wasn't as tall as audiences thought. While Warner Brothers listed him at 5 feet 10 inches, his true height was closer to 5 feet 8 inches, with some sources suggesting as short as 5 feet 6 inches. Early in his career, when playing supporting roles or villains, minimal height tricks were used. Once he became a leading man, studios employed clever techniques: the bogey box platform for scenes with taller co-stars, low camera angles, strategic shadow placement, and raised steps. Costume designers added vertical details and high waistlines to elongate his silhouette. Bogart's natural hunched posture and subtle head tilt helped conceal height differences, while his restrained, minimalist acting style focused attention on his face and voice rather than his stature. Warner Brothers carefully managed publicity photos and appearances to maintain the illusion. As director John Huston observed, Bogart's physical stature was irrelevant to his screen presence. When he entered a room, you felt it before you saw him. On screen, presence outweighed inches, and Bogart had it in abundance. 6. Dustin Hoffman. The graduate of height illusions. Though emerging after Hollywood's golden age, Dustin Hoffman's career bridged classic and modern approaches to managing stature on screen. At 5 feet 6 inches, Hoffman faced similar challenges as earlier short actors, but instead of hiding his height, he often incorporated it into his characters. In The Graduate, 1967, director Mike Nichols used traditional platforms and camera angles, but also made Hoffman's height a key part of his character dynamic, the smaller, younger man intimidated by the statuesque and Bancroft. In Midnight Cowboy and Kramer vs. Kramer, his stature subtly reinforced underdog roles, turning a potential limitation into a storytelling advantage. Technical solutions evolved too. Platform shoes added 2 to 3 inches, camera angles became subtler, and costume designers enhanced proportions with vertical lines while avoiding patterns that emphasized height. In Tootsie, his smaller frame actually aided the believability of his female persona. Unlike Golden Age stars, Hoffman's publicity rarely inflated his height. He embraced it candidly, saying, "I think I was lucky being short. It forced me to develop other qualities and to be specific about the kinds of roles I pursued." As director Sidney Pollack observed, Dustin doesn't try to be something he's not physically. He makes you forget about height by being so compelling in every other way. 7. Danny Kaye. The height of comedy. Danny Kaye's rapid-fire wit, musical talent, and extraordinary physical comedy made him one of Hollywood's most captivating performers in the 1940s and 1950s. At just 5 feet 7 inches, shorter than many co-stars and leading ladies, Kaye's kinetic energy and constant motion helped mask his stature, keeping audiences focused on his performance rather than his height. Traditional height-enhancing techniques were still used in romantic or conventional leading man scenes. Raised platforms, specialized camera angles, and tailored costumes with vertical elements subtly enhanced his proportions. His compact frame and agility made him ideal for complex dance routines and physical comedy, turning a potential limitation into a unique asset. Kaye embraced his stature with humor, famously quipping during White Christmas about averaging height with a 6 feet 3 inches Bing Crosby. By incorporating his actual height selectively into comedic moments, he transformed it from a liability into part of his charm. Director Norman Z. MacLeod once said, "Danny's energy makes you forget about physical dimensions. When he's performing, he expands beyond his actual size. He becomes as big as his talent, which is enormous. 8. George Raft, the diminutive gangster. George Raft's sleek, menacing presence made him one of Hollywood's definitive gangster stars in the 1930s and 1940s. At just 5 feet 7 inches, his cool, minimalist style in Scarface and Each Dawn I Die created a dangerous intensity that disguised his modest height. Raft's background as a professional dancer influenced both his movement and height management techniques. His controlled stillness and subtle shifts in expression maintained carefully arranged illusions without drawing attention to stature. Studios employed low-angle shots, custom suits with vertical stripes, high-waisted pants, and shoes with lifts to subtly add height. Strategic casting paired him with shorter actresses and supporting actors, while raised platforms and precise blocking helped when taller co-stars were present. Raft's compact, athletic build added to his screen menace. Film historian Eddie Mueller noted, "Raft didn't need to loom over you to be threatening. His stillness and those dead eyes made him scarier than bigger men." Warner Brothers publicity inflated his height, listing him between 5 feet 10 inches and 6 feet 0 inches, and carefully staged photos enhanced the illusion. Raft accepted his stature pragmatically, focusing on his strengths rather than limitations. Director Raoul Walsh recalled, "George knew exactly what he was and wasn't. He didn't waste energy worrying about things he couldn't change. He focused on using what he had to maximum effect." His confidence and controlled presence made Raft's gangsters unforgettable, proving intimidation isn't measured in inches. 9. Sal Mineo, the compact rebel. Sal Mineo's sensitive performances and youthful vulnerability made him one of the 1950s most compelling supporting actors, especially in his Oscar-nominated role opposite James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. Standing just 5 feet 6 inches, Mineo's height required careful on-screen management as he moved beyond teenage roles. Early in his career, his stature was an asset. Playing troubled teens, his smaller frame emphasized vulnerability and youth. Director Nicholas Ray used Mineo's height relative to Dean to highlight his character's need for protection. As he transitioned to adult roles, studios employed subtle height enhancement techniques, platform shoes, low camera angles, and strategic blocking with taller co-stars. Costume designers emphasized his slim, proportioned physique using vertical lines and tailored outfits, while his signature pompadour hairstyle added a few visual inches. Mineo occasionally leveraged his height for character purposes, using his compact frame to convey innocence or vulnerability. Director Don Siegel, who worked with him on Crime in the Streets, remarked, "Sal had more talent in his small frame than most actors twice his size." It's unfortunate Hollywood sometimes couldn't see past physical attributes to his extraordinary gifts. Mineo's career highlights the arbitrary obsession with height in Hollywood, showing how remarkable talent was sometimes overlooked because it didn't fit conventional physical ideals. His work remains a testament to presence and skill transcending stature. 10. Alan Ladd. Sometimes presence is bigger than stature. Alan Ladd, the original box office tough guy, captivated audiences in films like This Gun for Hire and Shane. Yet the actor who projected such formidable intensity stood just 5 feet 6 inches, with some accounts suggesting he was even shorter. Paramount Studios deployed an arsenal of tricks to make Ladd appear taller. Pairing him with actress Veronica Lake, who stood 4 feet 11 inches, created a natural height contrast. For scenes with taller co-stars, trenches were dug for actors like Jack Palance and Van Heflin. Ladd also stood on hidden platforms or Ladd boxes, while cinematographers used low-angle shots and costume designers employed vertical pinstripes and high-waisted pants. His shoes even contained custom lifts adding 2 to 3 inches. Interestingly, Ladd's height challenges shaped his acting style. His minimalist, tight-lipped delivery, relying on piercing eyes for emotion, preserved the height illusions. Director Gene Nicolesco noted, "What Alan lacked in inches, he made up for in intensity. The camera didn't see his height, it saw his eyes." Alan Ladd's legacy proves that in Hollywood, presence can tower far above physical stature.